Hi, this is Garibay, and today we're going to be talking about Dungeons and Dragons, and I'm going to finish RPG Elite's excellent video on why RPG Elites do not play every tabletop role-playing game. Alright, so let's jump into this. So I'm a big fan of RPG Elite. He has brought out a fairly new channel. He's been around for a little while now, but he's up and coming, starting to get some real momentum. And I'm a big fan of his channel. Though the biggest thing I like is his concept of RPG Elite. Right? He's saying, hey, this is what RPG Elites do, right? And he's saying there's a right way and a wrong way to play tabletop role-playing games, and there is quality and there is crap. You really shouldn't confuse the two, right? Now, I'm a big fan of this because there's a lot of false modesty going out, and there's a lot of people who are like, oh, when I do this video, I'm not saying I'm a better dungeon master than you, right? And and I really feel it's false modesty. I really dislike false modesty, and the reason why is okay. Let me explain this. I do a Dungeons and Dragons commentary because I've been dungeon mastering since I was 12 years old, and for decades I've accrued a lot of information, and I collect seriously, and I run my game, and I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I know a lot about Dungeons and Dragons, right? And so when I come to you, I'm like, you should listen to me because I know what I'm talking about, and probabilistically, right? Now, there's absolutely people who are Ducato 1862, right? Like from his comments, it's pretty clear he's a better dungeon master than me, right? And I definitely think there are people in my audience who are better dungeon masters than me. The Gibbons, I think, he's had just as much experience as me, and and seems to have been able to really craft a really good, solid, worldview, or a good solid approach to Dungeons and Dragons, right? And so I don't say for a minute that I'm better than all of my viewers. I do say I am better than most of my viewers. And here's the thing: if you're listening to a D&D commentator and they think they're not better than most of their viewers, they really shouldn't be doing this. And here's why. Okay, let me make it real clear, right? I don't know how to replace the oil in my car. I've never been able to. I can't even repair a tire, right? But if I tomorrow said, hey, my channel is about car repair, I don't have any standing. I don't know anything about that, right? Like, you should not be listening to me commentate on car repair, right? I don't know anything about it. I don't have the experience for it, and there's no value in me doing commentating on car repair, right? So the reality is, to me, when you create a Dungeons and Dragons commentary channel, that action states that you are thinking you are better than most people at this, and you should be better than most people at this if you're going to commentate and say, I think this is good, I think this is bad. And I think RPG Elite is, from what he's been saying, he's a solid, very dedicated dungeon master, and he does a great job of dungeon mastering, right? And so he wants to share his wisdom and his approach, right? And I'm really down for people who are like, yeah, there's a good path and a bad path when it comes to running a tabletop fantasy role-playing game. So I really like that, right? Now, he did an excellent video. It's linked below, and it was why RPG Elites don't play every role-playing game, right? And so he was kind of coming, and he explained, hey, you need to focus on a few games, and you shouldn't play everything, right? Now, first of all, let's talk about the technical, and then let's talk about the spirit of his video. The technical part of his video is actually, no one could play every tabletop role-playing game. There are easily 2,000 actual full tabletop role-playing games. There is easily 2,000, right? If you get into like single-page RPGs, you're well over 1,000 tabletop role-playing games, right? So it's not even possible, right? It's like books. Like if you decided you were going to read every book that was, I don't think you could read every book that was published last year. No human could do that, right? Same thing. It takes time to learn the rules and spin up and actually play a tabletop role-playing game. So it is not even possible for anybody to play every tabletop role-playing game. What he's saying is, like, don't play everything that comes across your path. Don't buy everything that that you come across. Don't buy, don't even buy half and then just play everything, right? You need to focus. And the reason why is you need system mastery, right? If you're going to be a good dungeon master, you need to know the rules, and then you need to know a lot about human nature. You have to be intelligent, you have to be charismatic, you have to be confident to succeed at dungeon mastering, right? You just have to, right? You're not going to succeed without those three things. And not everybody has all of that, right? So you may need to do things to make yourself more intelligent. Reading would be one of them, right? You may need to do some things to make yourself more charismatic. You would have to learn about human nature and social interaction, right? And confidence, right? You would need to learn how to be more confident. You could absolutely learn how to be more confident, right? And so you would need to do those things. So dungeon mastering is not easy, right? So let's meet him where he's saying it. He's saying the spirit of don't play too many. You have to focus. You have to get system mastery, and you have to craft yourself to be a good dungeon master. Most people are not born to it, right? Like it is a life's labor, right? So he did a great video, but he made it very general, right? And it left me with questions of, okay, I get where you're coming from. We don't run every, but that's kind of an obvious point. I understood that when I got into this video. There were some really good tips about focusing and in time and expenditure of money, but he didn't say, here's the right amount, right? So I'm going to do that. I'm going to finish this video, right? So I'm going to give you specifics and the reason why is, like, if you ask a question, like, give the full answer, right? So, and one, he may be, I just walked away going, okay, I kind of get your general point, right? But what are the specifics, right? So I thought about the specifics, and here they are, okay? So he said, RPG elites don't play every tabletop role-playing game. 100% agree. I 100% agree. He's spot on. It's a completely valid and correct statement, okay? All right. So if we don't play every tabletop role-playing, what are the limits? How much can we play, right? I'm going to give it to you right now. All right. So it's 500, 10, and 10. All right. So basically, let's talk about the library. How many games should you be actively playing? 5. Okay. 5 is the limit. I believe you shouldn't, and that includes playing and dungeon mastering. You can dungeon master 5. You can play in 5. You can dungeon master 2 and play in 3. Right. However you want to mix it up. Okay. But 5 is the limit. You should not be in more than 5 active tabletop role-playing games. And the reason why is I firmly believe you can be a fine, upstanding human being, uphold your responsibilities as a human being, right? And do quality for 5 active games, right? Oh, and by the way, that's per week, okay? All right, so no more than 5 active, you can't be in more than 5, and actually we will actually get to the, we'll get to the frequency. You should not be in more than 5 active games. We're not even talking about hours per week yet, okay? So 5 active games, that's the limit. If you go beyond that, I don't think you can really put quality into it, right? And this is a real thing. There are a ton of players out there who show up at games and really are there to ruin them. It's not a small thing. There's actually, I think, a lot of people who show up at games for reasons other than blessing anyone but themselves, and often can be incredibly selfish. That does happen, right? So, and I think if you're playing in more than 5 active games if you're currently in more than 5 active tabletop role-playing games, I really think you should give yourself you should ask yourself, am I actually making these games better, right? And it is my opinion that you can. Like, 5 is the limit. 5 active games is the limit. All right. Next, so 500. 500 books in your library is maximum, and it splits out. It splits out in the following way: you should not have a library of tabletop role-playing games more than 500, right? And the reason why, and let me give the breakdown. You should not own more than 100 core role books. Okay. Oh, and by the way, this is all physical print, right? We don't have time in this video to talk about digital. Digital is its own game, right? It's its own platform milieu, right? Real books, things of value, right? Not PDF nonsense, right? Like stuff that matters, right? Like, yeah. So your collection should not have more than 100 tabletop role-playing game core rule books. No more. That's too much, right? And then you should not own more than 400 source books. Now, I know, okay, people are like, I can hear you already. You're like, I got more than that already right now. You should slim down, right? And I have done this. I did go over 500, and I looked at it, and I'm like, there's entire systems here I haven't played in a decade, right? And I also haven't pulled them down and used them as a resource in a decade, right? So the reality is, by having a high number, and I think, you know, a high number, 500 is a high number, right? That allows you to have a deep breadth of tabletop role-playing games and a good number of source books for each one of them. But when you hit that 500, you have to call, right? Like, you can't just cram junk in, right, into your collection. And the reason why is, when you reach that point, one, you should be sharing. You have enough wealth that you should be looking for another dungeon master and saying, hey, take this stuff over, right? Like, I have too much and I want to give this to you, right? And I have done this. I have definitely done this. I actually take my stuff and I say to, you know, people in my group, hey, I haven't run this in, you know, 10 years. Does anybody want these, right? And a lot of times they'll take them, right? And then in addition to that, there's another thing I do. When somebody I know is actively running a game and is having a great campaign with a book I literally own and is literally on my shelf that I have not pulled out in 2 years, I just give it to them. I'm like, you're doing the real deal, and I don't want this back. This is yours, right? And I've done that a few times, right? So, one, culling is really helpful. It makes you think, what are the trends that are happening? What do I need? What do I not need? What part of what we're looking at here is completely unnecessary? And you know, and it makes you value what you have and remember what you have, and it also spreads the wealth. So you need to cull down below. 500 is max, okay? No more than 100 core rule books, no more than 400 source books. Going beyond that, you're either being selfish, you're being a hoarder, or those are two good reasons to not, and you probably you don't even know what's happening, and right, and this also reminds me of, I think on Netflix they had this show about this guy, and he wasn't even a hoarder, he was a collector, and he had like 1,000 sneakers, right, and he went to show somebody his collection, and like literally a section of it had literally rotted, right, like, you need to get into your collection, you need to dig stuff out, you know, this is a real thing. Don't go over 500 books, it's too much. All right, okay. So 5, 5, 10, and 10, okay? No more than 10 hours a week. It's too much if you are a tabletop role-playing game more than 10 hours a week. Again, it's a quality issue. If you're dungeon mastering, that gives you 2 4-hour sessions and 2 hours to prep for them, right? If you're playing, you can be playing in 2 4-hour games, and you need time to prep as a player, right? Like, and that's a real thing, right? Beyond this, I do not believe that you can actually bring quality to a group, right? Now, the reason why I said you can be at 5 active games but you only have 10 hours a week, some games meet at different frequencies. Some games meet as much as once a year or once a quarter or once a month, so that gives you time for that, right? But 10 hours a week, right? And then also, you feel free to average. Like, if you have a heavy week and you end up doing 15 or 20 in a week, that's fine, but you also need weeks off, right? If you're averaging more than 10 hours a week, I don't believe you can be bringing quality, okay? Last, 10% of your 10% of your gross. You should never ever pay more than 10% of your gross in buying product, right? It's just too much, right? And they're like, I'm an evangelical Christian. I do tithe. I will admit I don't think we tithe. Like, when I got married, I think we had a little bit of a, probably like maybe 5, 6, 7 years where we weren't tithing. We were giving a little bit here and there. And a pastor said, hey, if you think you can do better with 100% of your money and you are ignoring God's command, then you can do with 90% of your money, and he's going to, you know, and you're obeying him, then you're bad at math, right? And I was like, oh yeah, that's right. And pretty much since then we've tithed. So we tithe, and I'll say flat out, like, God don't ask for more than 10% of your money. So there ain't no tabletop role playing game company on the planet that should be getting more than 10% of your money, right? Or the entire industry. It's too much, and it's a good hard line, right? So I thought RPG Elite's video was fantastic, but it left me with some unanswered questions. So I answered them here, right? All right, so I've put hard numbers on it. He gave you a general idea, great video that he did. It inspired this video, right? And his video was better than mine because I'm just attaching something on to his, and it's just my opinion of what these limits are, right? But is my opinion correct? Do you agree with me? Do you think that these are sound, solid limits that keep you in a healthy way as you pursue tabletop role-playing game? Or do you believe that you found a path where you break some of my numbers, but you're doing it in a healthy way? I'd love to hear. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and a wonderful millennium.